Welcome to the podcast about investing in startups, where existing investors can learn how to get the best deal possible. And those that have never before invested in startups can learn the keys to success from the venture experts. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome back to TFR for a special installment of Investor Stories. In this segment, the investors tell a story about some of the most odd and unusual situations they've ever encountered as investors. This is the segment called The Strange and Unusual. On today's special segment, we have John Vrionis of Unusual Ventures. John, can you tell us a story about the craziest situation or pitch you've encountered?
The craziest pitch I've ever encountered. Yeah, I had this guy. He's like, listen, I can't send you this idea in an email. I have to show it to you in person. And I said,
that's odd.
Well, look, yeah, is there any way you could just give me a high level? And he's like, well, you sign an NDA.
Yeah.
I said, no, here's the thing. VCs don't sign NDAs. He's like, they don't? I'm like, no, because look, if we were in the business of stealing people's ideas, we would be out of business very quickly.
Yeah.
Right? If we got a reputation that way, your future's over. So look, come in, share an idea. Don't share anything too secretly if you want, that's maybe the secret sauce of how it works. But at some point, you're going to have to tell people what it is. Otherwise, this thing's, you're never going to be able to build a company.
Yep.
So he came in and he's like, okay, you sure you want to sign an NDA? I said, yeah, I'm sure. And so he slides this business plan over to me and he said, this market is huge. I don't know that there's a bigger one. And so I looked down at the paper and it's a business plan for a teleportation service.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So on the one hand, I totally agreed with him.
Yeah.
Amazing idea.
Yep.
definitely a big market. Maybe the biggest of all time. The challenge, unfortunately, is
physics.
In the physics. So yeah, it was a pass.
On today's special segment, we have Bradley Tusk of Tusk Ventures. Bradley, can you tell us a story about the craziest situation or pitch you've encountered?
I mean, everyone here obviously has their own. I remember the guy who came with a affordable housing company where people lived in trash dumpsters. I don't know if you've ever come across that.
No.
He was the craziest part of all. I'm talking to this guy, and I kind of know I should leave the meeting, but I'm so sort of fascinated by this. I'm hearing the story, and he says he's from Austin, and I finally realized he had gone on a date with my sister-in-law 5 or 6 years earlier. And I was like, oh, right, you remember that thing, right? And I think he took her to a trash dumpster literally on their date, and obviously they didn't have a second date.
What?
But that was, yeah.
This is crazy.
I remember she went in the trash dumpster, but it was not only this thing crazy, did you ever go on a date with somebody SEAL? He was like, yes. I was like, I know you, man. And his name was Baby also. I remember that. I don't remember his last name, but it was a extremely entertaining meeting. It was totally a fun use of a half an hour of my time, but I don't know that the startup really went anywhere. So we've seen that. We've seen startup ideas around even more experimental than cannabis. For example, someone came to me and said, want you to run a campaign to legalize psychedelic drugs for medicinal purposes, and then we're going to be the first startup to produce all of these things. And by the way, I'm all for that, but we're not there yet, right? The world is just not in any way ready for something like that yet. And so we obviously passed on it. And keep in mind, every time that someone thinks they're going to have a problem with government and politics, they tend to give us a call. We try to at least hear everyone out. And most of the time, their thesis is sound. It's just not quite good enough for us to choose to deploy capital into. But we're willing to try all kinds of different ideas and models.
Got to give the dumpster guy credit for getting a meeting with you.
They got the meeting. He got a date with my sister-in-law. He's right. He's probably got a $400 million valuation now to Series B or something.
Not too shabby. On today's special segment, we have Oren Klaff of Intersection Capital. Oren, can you tell us a story about the craziest situation or pitch you've encountered in your time as an investor?
Yeah, so it's a trick question because it's in absolute chapter 1, first couple pages of Flip the Script. Raising money for a company, I found myself in the highest tower in Moscow talking to an oligarch And, this is in the book, but I'll give you a clue. So the crazy situation is I'm pitching him, right? And walking through the software and what it does. And it's a healthcare deal. And he's asking questions in perfect English, right? With a Russian accent, but, why have you done it this way? We don't understand why you're using this computational approach, right? And I'm like, oh, so then I explain it, overcome the objection, right? And then I ask him a question and, oh, sorry, not understand. And the translator has to come in, right? So when it's convenient for him, speak in really goodly English. When it's inconvenient, oh, sorry, and the translator came in. I didn't really understand what was happening at the time, but it's the ultimate in frame control. I don't speak your language. Being in Moscow, looking over the Moscow River, pitching to an oligarch. There's guys in the room with guns. I mean, it's not like a video game where they're aiming it at you, but they have armed guards. So I've never pitched like that before. Although now that I'm saying that, I realize I'm just trying to promote the book. Because a couple months ago, I was at NASCAR. We ran a car in the Daytona 500, right? And I go to the driver's meeting, and I'm talking to J.J. Watts, in the driver's meeting. And then finally I go, excuse me, J.J., yeah, that's all nice and everything. I got to go talk to this guy. And I'm talking to Carlos Slim, who's standing right behind him. And have a little conversation with Carlos Slim about a telecommunications company. That's what he's into. We have to brake because the cars have to go out onto the track. I'm out on the track, and our car is parked right next to Carlos Slim's car. I mean, this is the 2018 Daytona 500.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So this was, a couple months ago, 2019. And so our cars are parked next to each other, right? And I say, hey, Carlos. And he comes over, leaves his car at the start of the Daytona 500. It's not like on lap 400, right? Where he's like, yeah, I'm bored. Yeah, let's talk. At the start of the race, when he's with his team and his driver, Danny Suarez, he comes over to our car, the David Reagan number 38 car, and we start talking about a deal. The Navy jets are flying overhead. There's 250,000 people in the fans where it's 118 degrees on the track, and we're talking about a telecommunication deal with Carlos Slim at the Daytona 500. And that's the craziest thing I've ever been involved in.
Wow. Amazing. That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Also, if you'd like updates on new content from TFR, as well as the top 10 VC articles every week, go to fullratchet.net and sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.